This Liberty Sports Update is brought to you by Beacon Credit Union.
These have certainly been challenging times for our coaches, our staff, our student athletes, not to mention the entire country and our state and the local community. At the same time, we have a lot to be grateful for, and certainly it reminds us to be grateful for our health and our family and our faith and all the blessings that God pours out for us. But a couple things that we've done really from a leadership standpoint since the outbreak of the virus was, first of all, we've made our top priority to be the safety and welfare of our student athletes and staff. That's been paramount and really at the forefront of all the decisions that we've made. The second thing we've tried to do is provide very clear communication with our coaches and staff, and we've done that through email updates and virtual meetings like this one. And it's been such a fluid situation. There have been a lot of questions, a lot of changes, and we've tried to be really intentional about communicating to the fault of over communicating, so people know what was going on. And then the third thing that we've really focused on is impressing upon our coaches and staff how important it is to regularly check in with the student athletes, some of whom are in Lynchburg, some are elsewhere, on their academics, on their health, both physical health and mental health, and just overall well-being. Our student athletes have never been through anything like this before, and so we want to make sure that we're coming alongside them as they go through it. So those are a few things that we've adopted just generally in terms of our principles, and I've been really proud of the way our coaches and staff have handled this in a really positive way in light of difficult circumstances.
Ian, the first question for me, so a lot's been made about the NCAA's decision to slash payouts for Division I schools. How's Liberty been affected by that? And have you spoken with any of the other ADs in the ASUN conference regarding their financial strain?
Yeah, Damien, we've had several calls with the ASUN athletic directors and the commissioner, and basically the cancellation of the men's basketball tournament means that the revenue distribution from the NCAA is going to be about 37 cents on the dollar from what we've previously received. So in our case, that's going to represent a high six-figure loss of revenue. Fortunately, well, in addition to that, we're also going to have a shortfall in ASUN revenue, and we had some baseball ticket refunds as well. So when you put all that together, we have pretty close to 7 figures of lost revenue. On the flip side, though, there are savings from spring sports travel that we didn't need to fund. And we also made some reductions in other operating expenses and some administrative areas, and that's allowed us to offset that entire revenue shortfall. So, as far as this year's budget, we're in a good place.
Are you one of the few schools in the nation that would be in such a good place? Because I've seen a lot of the major programs, they're scrambling because of the loss of this revenue that's supposed to be coming in from the NCAA.
Yeah, we're fortunate that we had savings to offset that, and we've been diligent in terms of being good stewards of the resources we've had. So we've been able to find savings, again created by the fact that our spring teams didn't travel, and along with some operating expenses we didn't need to pay for, home contest management, some of the expenses that go along with hosting games. So that's worked out well. As we look to next year. There's certainly a lot of uncertainty out there. We've made some contingency plans just based on how things go. I personally am very optimistic that we're going to return to, more normal operations over the course of summer and be ready for the fall. And I think one of the other things is we're very blessed that under President Falwell's leadership here at Liberty, the university has done very well. It has a strong financial standing and a substantial endowment. So we're in a much better position to weather challenging times than most other higher education institutions.
Ian, I read something yesterday, I think it was, with the Conference USA, and they're looking at ways to try to save money for next year with championships and different things. Have you heard any talk from the ASUN similar along those lines? Are they looking at changing any of the championships or the way that they're conducted or anything along those lines?
Yeah, we haven't made any changes to the championship format in the ASUN for next year. As a matter of fact, they're rolling over the 2020 championships to 2021. So we'll be hosting next year, in addition to indoor track, men's and women's tennis, and also softball. So the championships that we didn't get to host this year are just rolled over to next year.
Hey, Ian, how much does the NCAA's impact of their decision to allow spring semester athletes an extra year of eligibility, how much does that play an impact in really your coaches' plannings, but also for financial impact that could have, and for the roster management for those coaches? Have you had much communication with them in that? And is it too early to be able to predict how many student athletes may take advantage of that?
Yep, good questions. So first of all, just in terms of the principle, I'm in agreement with the NCAA's decision, to grant the blanket waiver for the 5th-year spring sports student athletes so they could come back next year. I think that, in light of the fact that their seasons were cut dramatically short, that was an honorable thing to do. So I agree with the principle of it. We've been gathering information from our head coaches of the spring sports regarding the intent of this year's seniors to return next year. And at this point, it looks like about 1/2 of them would like to come back. Some of them have made plans and have jobs and are getting married and doing other things, but about 1/2 of them do have a desire to come back. So we're right now looking at our financial aid limits and how we can work that in. But it's certainly something that we certainly desire, if at all possible, have those seniors return to the university and be a part of the program next year.
Yeah, those scholarships are essentially endowments that the university pays out. A lot of public universities are having the issue of finding the money and the resources to be able to afford the additional scholarships over what they were planning. How has Liberty been able to make sure that has been taken care of?
Yeah, again, that's something we've got to work with the university administration on. Now that we have a rough sense of how many are going to return, we think it's going to be somewhere in the range of $350,000 to $400,000. And so again, that's something that we're going to be studying here in the next couple of weeks.
Hey, Ian, Anthony Romano from WDBJ over here. Can you maybe give an update on some of the construction and renovation aspects of the Carter Tower, and maybe any other things that fans can expect to see different if and when the football season starts?
Yeah, I'd be glad to. So the Liberty Football Center project is complete, with the exception of just a small number of punch list items. So Coach Freeze and staff have moved into the LFC, and we're going to be doing a virtual tour of this facility, so you'll get to see it and be among the first to see it as we move into that facility and it becomes functional for us. It is spectacular. It's really going to be a game changer for us between the LFC and the indoor practice facility. Those give us really elite Power 5 level facilities for our football program. So we're very excited about what that's going to do for us. The Liberty Arena project is on schedule to open this fall. The opening games are going to be the second week of November. Right now it looks like the Tuesday, I can't call the date right now, it might be November 10th. Looks like we'll have a men's game to open in basketball, and the 12th a women's game. So we're excited about that. And we do think there's a good chance that at least a portion of the volleyball season will also be able to be played in the arena, but we're a little bit less clear on the specifics there. But again, that will be a superior facility, great environment, and home court advantage for our team. So we're really excited about that as well. And then, as you mentioned, the Williams Stadium Carter Tower project renovation has begun, and it's also on schedule to be ready for the fall, and that will include some new luxury indoor seats, some added hospitality space, and improvement to our existing suites. So we're excited about all those projects.
While we're on the subject, and this may have been mentioned elsewhere, and I may have missed it, what's the plan for volleyball? Where will they be playing this fall?
That's a great question, John. We're still working on a couple of those options right now. There is a possibility that they could play their entire home season in Liberty Arena, We're not 100% certain on that, and if that's not the case, we have talked about a couple contingency plans, but we haven't finalized those at this point.
Ian, we've got a question from Jermaine over at FXR in Roanoke. He was asking on chat. He just wanted to know what's been the biggest challenge for the coaches during this time of uncertainty.
I think the hardest thing for the coaches is just been being away from their student athletes. They're used to interacting with their student athletes on a daily basis, and coaches by nature are very structured, and they're used to having student athletes, in class at a certain time and at practice at a certain time and getting academic advising at a certain time and working out at a certain time. And while we do have about 175 in Lynchburg, the majority of our student athletes are back home. And so just staying connected with them and making sure that they're using their time wisely and taking care of their academic pursuits, I think is right at the top of the list for our coaches.
Yeah, along those lines, just a follow-up from me, I mean, what have been the challenges as far as making sure that those guys and gals are able to stay in shape, being away, with not being around their strength coaches?
Yes, our strength coaches have done a fantastic job, and they've been able to provide workouts for all of our student athletes. All the workouts have to be voluntary under the ASUN directive. There's no mandatory practice or workouts at this point in time, but they have been able to send workouts to our student athletes by email, or they're able also Zoom or Skype or FaceTime with student athletes just to talk about what they have access to. Some of our student athletes have workout facilities in their home. They may have a home weight room. Others, have access to a track or a facility that they can get to. So really the strength coach has done a great job just communicating with the student athletes and encouraging them to use whatever assets they have in their location, and be respectful, obviously, of social distancing and safety, but utilizing an opportunity to work out wherever they happen to be.
I want to piggyback off that question. And there was a recent survey conducted by Lead One Association and TeamWorks that showed ADs are concerned about the strain being put on student athletes having to study at home for the first time, not being in that structured workspace, especially with their training schedule. What concerns do you have about the student athletes during these unprecedented times?
Yeah, what was interesting about that survey, and I participated in that, Damien, was the number one concern of ADs was academics. And so Chrissy Bites and her staff have been very intentional about communicating with our student athletes, in some cases daily, but certainly even more frequently than they did when they're physically here, because it's easy for student athletes to get distracted and sleep in and play video games or do something that is not helping them advance the ball academically. So they've done a terrific job, and our coaches have been very involved in that as well, just making sure our student athletes are taking care of their academic work and also have the academic support that they need to be successful. But that is a huge concern, and something that we've worked really hard at here the last few weeks.
I know there's a lot still up in the air about the 2020 football season, but what are some of the conversations you've had with those in the industry, other athletic directors, and also your staff there at Liberty, as far as what you all are planning and what you're hearing for the season coming up here in a few months?
Yeah, so based on the information I've had, and I've been on several AD calls where we've had epidemiologists and medical experts, they've been very encouraging, and I think there's a pretty strong belief that this is going to peak in the not too distant future, and that we can resume to much more normal activities over the summer months. And there's a lot of reason for optimism that we'll be back to normal for the fall. So I thought it was also very encouraging that Major League Baseball is looking at a return to play sometime in May. So, we're certainly hopeful that that's the case. We have discussed some contingency plans. Certainly some people have talked about the possibility of a shortened season in 2020. And we have discussed that, and also the possibility that conferences may just play the conference portion of their schedule. And in that scenario, we've actually had some preliminary discussions about replacement games, including against some of our fellow independents. So we do have contingency plans in place, but I'm very hopeful that we'll be able to play a full 2020 season.
If you look at the shortened season, how many games would that look like if that were the case?
Again, one of the scenarios that's been discussed is just, again, the conference is just playing conference games only. So that would be an 8 or 9 game schedule if that were to happen. I've read some comments about the possibility if things are not looking good in the fall to push the football season to the spring. Again, I think that's very unlikely. But again, I think at this point you want to prepare for everything, but hope for the best.
One thing that is proceeding as normal.
Liberty's in a good financial situation.
Sorry, Damon. I only heard the first part of that.
Yeah, you mentioned how good Liberty is financially, and we're seeing Old Dominion had to shutter volleyball after 63 years because of the financial strain. And you're looking at other programs across the country are looking at potential varsity sports being closed because of the financial hardships and the lack of revenue coming in from the NCAA. Are you worried about potentially having to drop any sports at Liberty? And what is the status of working to become Title IX compliant once football moved up to FBS?
Yeah, so I'll take the second part of that first. So from a gender equity standpoint, we've employed roster management. So we give each of our sports a squad size, and so that's enabled us to comply with Title IX and gender equity. We have a gender equity consultant come in every 2 years to just evaluate us and help us with our plan. But we're in really good shape there. Post FBS move. As far as the first part of your question, we haven't entertained any sports sponsorship changes.
One thing that is proceeding as normal is the NFL draft, and Antonio Gandy Golden is gearing up for that. How big of a platform is that for the school, and just having a young man like that being able to go out there and represent?
Well, Antonio is such a great representative of Liberty, obviously had a great career and just a wonderful young man. And it's exciting. You know, he is projected right now to be the highest drafted Liberty football player since 1990. So that says quite a lot. And a number of the projections that I've seen have him listed in the top 100 selections. So, you know, we're hopeful that he may go in the second or third or possibly early fourth round. So anyway, certainly he's a great credit to our football program. Coach Freeze and Maurice Harris did a wonderful job working with him and developing him further this year. And we're eager to see where he lands. And I think this year's NFL draft will be more watched and more anticipated than most, since there's not that much else going on right now in the world of sports. So we'll be excited for that here in 2 weeks.
Going back to the basketball season, how disappointing was that for you and Liberty to not be able, and Coach McKay, and specifically that senior class, to not be able to participate in the NCAA tournament, something that they've been building towards really for 4 years now?
Yeah, it certainly felt very bad for Coach McKay and the staff, and especially the seniors. What a tremendous season that the team had, and you know certainly what a moment that was, though, in the Vine Center, you know, to beat Lipscomb in front of just a tremendous crowd and win the conference championship. That was an exciting final moment for that team, but certainly we all hoped that they were going to advance to the NCAA tournament, and they certainly were a team that had the ability to win one or more games in the tournament. So that was very disappointing and frustrating, but as he always does, Coach McKay handled it with great class, as did his student athletes, and we're again certainly a memorable season, one that is arguably the best in the history of the school.
Speaking of Coach McKay in basketball, you were able to give him another extension following the season. How important was that to go ahead and try to get him locked in for as long as possible?
Well, we're really fortunate. Coach McKay loves Liberty, is very committed to this institution, and we're equally committed to him. And just grateful for his leadership. He's a great mission fit, godly man, wonderful coach. The student athletes love him, and he is recruiting at an exceptionally high level right now. So we're very bullish about the future, and really excited about the overall direction of the program under his leadership.
Talking about Coach McKay and also Coach Freeze, how they've kind of, risen the Liberty programs, their respective programs, to kind of a national prominence in their in Coach Freeze's short time here, but in Coach McKay's time here as well, that, they've kind of been out mentioned maybe as possible replacements as other jobs. Is that just kind of further testament to just the job that you and your staff and those men in particular have been able to do to garner that type of respect nationally?
Well, it's really important to have continuity among your coaching staff, and we're certainly, those two sports, as you mentioned, football is really the flagship, and men's basketball right there with it is incredibly important. So we're grateful that to have such outstanding coaching leadership in those two programs. And we're also excited that those two coaches really enjoy Liberty and are thriving in our program right now. So that's certainly, and if you're sitting in my chair, makes you feel really good. And I think across the board, I just think we have fantastic coaches right now. As you know, I did want to mention one who is transitioning, and that was Coach Tolsma. As you know, he announced after the ASUN championship that he was going to retire at the end of the spring, and unfortunately, the spring came a lot sooner than any of us had anticipated. But what a legacy he has left. That track and field program, winning 116 conference championships, 78 Coach of the Year awards, numbers that are just certainly will never be equaled. And over his 34 years, he's just done a fantastic job with our program. So we're going to miss him a great deal. We're going to have a celebration of his career with his former athletes around homecoming in October. And we're all, at the same time, we're really excited to welcome Lance Bingham back to Liberty. He'll be a great addition to our coaching staff. He's very familiar with our institution, and he'll be a tremendous asset to our program. So sorry to lose Coach Tolsma, but real excited about what Coach Bingham will bring to Liberty.
How much did you work with Coach Tolsma on bringing in Coach Bingham there? I know that those two had worked together for a long time. I would guess he probably had some input there as well.
He did, and he really provided. Todd Patulski's our sport administrator for the track and field, and provided both Todd and I with his advice and recommendation. And certainly, when you have someone who's a legend like Coach Tolsma is, you're going to take their advice and hold it in the highest regard. And that's what we did, and we were able to put a plan together and hire Coach Bingham during the season, which is fairly atypical, but we're looking forward to getting him here physically next month.